Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for all the panelists, guests, speakers, as well as all the participants who have joined the session today. I, myself, Ahmed Javed, who is the founder of Cyberselect Community, warmly welcome all of you. And as you know, all that Cyberselect Community is primarily a knowledge sharing non-profit community for cyber intellectuals. We gather all the cyber related professionals from all around the globe to come and share their knowledge and experiences with us and contribute towards the community. So today's topic, which has been selected with the extreme care, which is a very relevant and hot topic of these days, considering the enhanced number of cyber attacks all around the globe. In particularly, if we see that when the Middle East and more specifically Qatar has been under the spotlight of the global audience due to the being a host of FIFA World Cup. With that said, based on the recent survey, World Economic Forum has rated cyber attacks as the fourth highest risk to the global economies back in 2009, which has been increased to third highest risk towards the global economies in back in 2020. Considering all that challenges, which basically most of the organizations from various industries, including in particularly oil and gas, FSI, banking, government, they are facing the number of breaches and struggling to enhance their incident response capability in order to effectively and efficiently respond to such cyber incidents. Being that said, when any organizations come along to such situations where they have a breach or an incident or a compromise, they have to have a strong capability, including the skilled manpower on ground, which is considerably quite an expensive asset of any organization. And that's why most of the organizations are looking for a substitute or alternate to mitigate or transfer those risks. There are multiple options which they are opting for. One very common example is outsourcing. However, today's topic is the another option which most of the organizations are going for, but nonetheless, the corporate leaders are not very much fully aware of this topic. That's why today we will hear from the experts that what is cyber insurance, how an organization should consider, and what exactly needs to be considered in order to choose the right insurance service provider. So before we begin, without any further ado, I would like to take privilege to introduce my respected panelists and guests. I'll start with Radwan Drashta, who is a business consultant and channel manager for a well-known German organization, Dracon. They are well-known not only in Europe, in Middle East as well, considering their strong cybersecurity, encryption, and identity solutions. My second guest is Mr. Mohammad Ishtiyaq Hussain, who is the founder and CEO of UTI Cybersecurity, which they are working and offering their professional services and cybersecurity solutions along with cloud solutions in the region. Warm welcome to both of you. So without any further ado, we will start our discussion by posting my first question: that what is cyber insurance. Everyone is talking about the cyber insurance. So when I'll start with posting that question first to Radovan, would like to answer the first. What is cyber insurance? What exactly a corporate leader should be knowing about cyber insurance?
Yeah. So to me, cyber insurance is the mitigation of the risks. So we need to put up with the fact that the bad people will be always kind of ahead of us in spite of the fact whatever we are using. And our task is then really to minimize the risk and the suffering which could potentially happen to us. So for me, there are two aspects. The first one is that I do everything possible, which is in my knowledge, in my power, to ensure that my company, my data will not be hacked, will not be attacked, that my environment will stay safe. And the other part is, in terms of cyber insurance, I can then really talk to whomever else in terms of ensuring the risk which could occur to me.
Exactly. So that's again comes from the risk mitigation efforts, which all the inclusive from the risk managers and the corporate leaders together have to work around to devise those strategies to mitigate those risks effectively and efficiently. Ishtiaq, would you like to add on this?
Yeah, so my thoughts are that it is for organization or the individual to safeguarding them against financial damages. So, and the cyber attack could be identity theft, phishing, email spoofing, IT theft, loss, and these are on rise as Radovan has told already that we are having a lot of cyber attack these days, and there is a lot of financial damages being incurred by individuals and the organizations. So, best strategy to safeguard against those damages in terms of the financial, at least, we can purchase cyber insurance, and then we can at least have some sort of a protection for our organization.
Right, right. So how about like considering the protection mechanisms to mitigate the risk? I mean, if we look from the holistic, the holistically about the risk mitigation efforts, every organization is preferred to have a risk management function within the organization that could comprise of a person or a team or a department, or more commonly that is like referred as enterprise risk management function. So they usually devise the risk management approaches where once if any organization is identifying any risk around, so then one option the risk owner should take. So insurance is generally been considered is while we opt for transferring the risk. Would you agree with this comment, Radwan?
Yes, I would agree with this comment. And again, I would probably start from the very beginning. There is a saying, if you have a secret and do not want to get it spread out, do not tell everyone, yeah, or anyone. And I would say exactly here it is. So if you have things which you can really keep safely for yourself, this will then make smaller the circle of the events which you should get insured against. Yeah. So it is like with a house, you can build a house which has a bad construction, and then you can go to an insurance company and to say, I would like to get this house insured. The insurance company will come around, will look at the house and said, well, it is in a very bad shape. We can insure it, but it will cost you a fortune. Yeah. And exactly it is in the cyber world and with our data. So if you can make sure that your house structure is safe, that no perpetrator or only a few of them could potentially get in there, then your cyber insurance will be much, much smaller in terms of money, in terms of precautions, in terms of people involved, etc., than if you make a kind of open house party. And then at the end of the party at 3 o'clock in the morning, you are surprised how many chandeliers are missing. Yeah. So again, so make a well protected structure, and then your insurance premium will be relatively smaller than if you make a open house party, probably with a lot of entertainment.
Well, I can't agree more on your perspective. Like, first we need to put all the efforts to mitigate or to protect ourselves from the breaches, from unauthorized accesses and malicious behavior, which can be done by the perpetrators. However, this can be considered as a second option. But Ishtiaq, would you agree on this point? Like, I mean, if a company, what factors should a company should consider while assessing that when they should not be investing in developing their internal competency, rather they should go for outsourcing or transferring the risk to the insurance company?
Yeah, as you mentioned in the beginning, this again it depends on the risk assessment being conducted at enterprise level, and as part of the risk assessment, you will know what are the risks which are there within the enterprise, and how you like to treat it. For example, are you going to accept those risks, or are you going to transfer this risk? If you want to transfer those risks, definitely we have to have, buy the insurance policies, and definitely as Rodovan told, that definitely you need to make sure that your environment is secured, your security basics are implemented. So unless until your minimum basics are implemented, for example, even if you implement the fantastic security, if your desktops are not patched, you will be definitely be in trouble. Or if you are not implementing the basic securities in your DMZs or in the cloud, or you are not protecting your user identity. So these are all challenges. So security need to be looked at holistic way. We cannot take it as a individual component wise, and it has to be taken as a complete function within an organization, and it has to be assessed from end to end, and then all component in the path of the security, covering DMZ, your data center, your internal network, your desktops, your server, your applications, and all need to be protected. And then definitely you have to take a holistic approach when you want to do a security you want to take security as a whole. Plus the outcome of this, definitely there is going to be risk assessment at enterprise level. Then you will know what are the risks which are there. So some risk you will be able to treat maybe operationally or with implementing some technologies. Some risk will be always being there. Like for example, I can give you example. If you are a bank, for example, so if you are allowing online banking function, always there is a risk that there could be credit card theft or credit card fraud can happen, or even debit card or fund transfer fraud can happen. So these are the areas definitely which you need to get yourself protected against, and you need to buy the insurance. And as in the beginning we told that insurance premium and your complete insurance cycle again depends how secured you are, what are the basics you have implemented, what are the level of security you have implemented, and what are the loophole in the organization, and what are the previous incident which you have faced as an organization in terms of the security risk or the fraud, for example. So this will all will decide what premium will be there. Yeah. I hope I answered.
Exactly. So these are all those considerations which any corporate leaders should look at when they decide to go for an insurance service or a package. But I myself personally, when I was in a bank as well, and I worked for the oil and gas company, when I used to deal with the risk managers, they quite often used to use this term risk appetite while deciding that which treatment option they should go for. And in terms of like they always used to keep the risk transfer option as a last one. So
Okay.
so would you like to shed some light, Radwan, on how important the risk appetite is to know for the corporate leaders to decide whether we should go for insurance or no?
Absolutely. So I think that this risk appetite, and this is, I would say, a very pointed term, is kind of in each of us. And this is probably we love, to go for an adventure. Point number one. Second, we are kind of lazy to go for to step on untread path. So something to explore, something which is different. And the third aspect is that the safe solutions are probably not the most common or the the cheapest one. So give me here an example. So speaking out of the European exam, from the European ground. So yes, Google, AWS, Azure, probably AWS, Google, Azure are here the most dominant cloud providers. Yeah, and so if you are a manager, you would be probably thinking, okay, I should be going with the biggest one. But then, just because of the legal reasons, you should be considering if you would like to go for probably some smaller European providers who can guarantee you that the data will never ever leave the European Union, which is not the case with the American companies per se by default. If because of the US Cloud Act, they are obliged in case of dispute to provide to some US authorities the data. So being a manager, I think this is a very crucial discussion. Should you give kind of, to take a risk and to go with the crowd and probably put it to one of the leading American providers, or should you go with one local one, which is more expensive, most likely, but more secure here as well. So this is a kind of risk aversion or risk adventure you are going to take in terms of your decision. And of course, all of these decisions which you are making, you should be doing based on the best knowledge available. Best knowledge available, what are the consequences if something goes wrong, what happens to you? If you have kind of bunch of completely unimportant data, then it doesn't matter where it is stored. Yeah, go for the cheapest place. So who should care about it? But if you have data which give you a competitive advantage, I think that you should be really risk averse. So you should be really avoiding risk, because this could, put your company in big trouble, probably even out of business. And this is the big decision which you, as a IT manager, CIO, CTO, or CISO, whatever your position is, you should have as the utmost goal in your mind if you are going making a decision. What could be the worst possible disaster happening to my company if this data is leaked or perpetrated?
Exactly. I think you highlighted a very important few points where the insurance service providers as well, they need to look at that. What is the level of the risk they are dealing with? If the basic security controls in any organizations are missing, so that's very much likely that the organization is going to face some breach. So eventually, the insurance company has to consider like how much the financial aspect they are talking about or they're dealing with. As Ishtaq rightly said, that that actually helps them calculating the premium of the policy. But just connecting the missing dots, we do know that when organizations who are into this insurance business, they talk about like serious risk, because all about the mostly financial and reputation risk. How much regulators play their role in regulating this thing by enforcing the ICRs needs to be done? Let's take like, some sort of a different industry view to start with, because Ishtiyaq came from a massive banking background. So let's start from the banking experience.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing here now, especially from your question of the risk appetite, in the olden days, I think risk appetite would have been based on organizational culture and demand, but now it is being turned towards the regulator now. And the regulators are coming very hard on the organization, especially in the financial sector and in the government sector, what we see here. And then there are several regulations which are demanding organization to be complying with the certain minimum security baselines. For example, in Qatar, we have got Qatar Cybersecurity Framework, which is at the moment is being implemented at various public and private organizations. So, and plus and this framework covers several aspects of security, from the basic security to the user plus enterprise level security. Plus, also there are challenges like or the regulators like your privacy. Again, there is a regulation in Qatar as well that privacy of people need to be treated very need to be treated properly, and it's like equivalent of GDPR here. And if any organization not being complying with those privacy regulation could be penalized up to I think there is a limit of 5 million real per breach. So there are regulators are coming very hard on this, and at the public sector as well as the private sector. And so it's no more a choice anymore now for companies to not to have at least minimum security or not to have this minimum cybersecurity function. So this is going to be is a mandate now, and most of the organization should and must comply with this, especially who are conducting the business using internet or who are interacting with the entities or the who are in public or private sector on day-to-day basis. So these are my thought, and then definitely answering your question, regulators are coming with several regulation, and there are circulars are coming from the various central banks, various governing bodies, privacy institution, and as well as over that bodies who are creating framework. Plus, in Qatar, we know there is a cybersecurity agency is also being formed. Actually, again, this function is going to be taken at very highest level in the country. So I think cybersecurity has been given its due attention now, and hopefully in coming days and months and years, organizations need to comply with those guidelines and which are close to mandatory now. These are no more option.
Exactly, but the regulators now these days seems very aggressive in terms of enforcing the policies to strengthen the security controls for the organizations and for the especially those are which are listed in stock exchange for the public corporations. But however, the regulators are primarily need to devise the policies and enforce them. Now, considering the central banks in around the region, they have enforced that. I mean, if you, based on the current ICR posted, internal control reviews, which needs to be done by internal audits or by external entities, maybe, based on the outcome of that risk exposure, current risk exposure, they need to still go for a sort of an insurance policy which covers the overall going concern risk from a blanket point of view. So, Radwan, would you like to shed some light on some other industries which you come across, like might be government or oil and gas?
Yes, happily to do so. So probably just to give some figures first. So as you know, in Europe, this GDPR, this General Data Protection Regulation, is the predominant, I would say even a kind of spooky, ghost who is going around because everyone is really afraid of that. Let me probably give you a little bit of history of that. It started several years ago, and then it was a huge rush on consulting and IT companies to make sure that their clients are really GDPR compliant. Yeah? So it helped here a lot. Why? Because the penalty is up to 4% of the worldwide revenue. So if you are a small company, somewhere in Germany, but you are a producing company which is then selling the goods all over the world, then in the hypothetical case, you would be charged from your worldwide revenue 4%, which could be a huge, if your margin is 5% and you are charged 4%, then this could be a disaster for the company. So this was the first kind of incentive which the regulators put on the company with this threat, which was happening here. The second is that also there is a kind of malicious market, if I may put it this way. What I mean by malicious market, there are a lot of organizations or legal companies who say we could earn some money by finding out that someone is breaching the GDPR, and then we will help in our own, I would say, profit, but we will help the community by enforcing GDPR. And yes, this was happening. Not too much, but there were some cases which were reported that this and this legal company or law office has sued someone because of not keeping GDPR in place. And then the third aspect, so this is a kind of more anecdotal story. So again, not a dominant feature. And then the third one, which is more dominant, is especially in banking, for instance, that the banks are threatened that their authorities who have granted them the banking license could withdraw this license if there is not an audit confirming that the company is GDPR complaining. Yeah. So there is another market extending that a number of auditing companies are coming to banks, and the banks are then also on the other side proud, to show up. Look, I have a certificate which confirms, dear customer, dear big company, that your money with me is safe, not because my only financial wisdom and knowledge, but also because the data is technically safe with me. So these are the things which are, from the regulator's point of view in Europe, helping to think differently and to make protective measures how the GDPR or generally the data security should be increased. And then there is, I would say, out of that, but probably we can talk about it later, there is a general trend, to make your intellectual property safe. Because if you look at the company, the difference between each company, put it in simpler terms, are the people, or even I would say the brains of the people today, especially if you are a knowledge worker. So it means the difference is the IP which the company has or has not. And many more, and the companies are now realizing much more. So if you are whatever, a pharmaceutical company, and you have been developing a drug for 10 years, you want to make damn sure that the result of your research are not so easily hacked. Yeah.
Exactly. So when considerably across different regions, the regulators have picked up this aspect of contributing into development of the effective risk management strategies, considering enforcement of insurance policies as well. But however, let's look at from the other aspect now as well, because now let's consider from the cyber insurance providers as well. From your expert opinion, what sort of considerations they should look at, apart from having a preliminary risk assessment of the organization, security options, and all that, because they are taking over a big risk. So when we do, so so if the customer or the insurance policy holder hit by any breach, what sort of the guidelines should the cyber insurance service provider should follow in order to come up with an effective damage assessment report and to evaluate the current damage in dollar value? Let's start from Ishtiyaq, and then I'll come to you, Radwan, on this.
Yeah, actually, what I have seen also actually in some certain cases in my life as well, that you have got your insurance policy and then the coverage is there. And sometimes it depends on the value. For example, if fraud is for few hundreds or few thousands of reals, for example, so there will not be much questions. But an insurance will refund you immediately, and then on the next renewal, your premium might be increased again based on the risk assessment. So normally how the insurance works, they will send you a questionnaire, and then it is like self-assessment, and then you have to reply to those, for example, and you have, for example, firewall, or do you have a access control, or do you have PAM type solutions, or do you conduct your vulnerability assessment and things like that. So the basic securities and how your patching mechanism. So once they have the input from there, they can judge that yes, the customer is having some level of security. Sometimes they may come and have some cross questions or interaction with you and your team. But most of the cases, I have not seen any insurance company coming back and asking more details actually. And once they have this self-assessment question available, they can assess the organization, and from there they can, based on the nature of business, they can provide the coverage. But if there's some breach happen, for example, again it depends on the value. If the value is small, you'll get a refund immediately. If the values are bigger, then sometimes you need to go to sometimes the local insurance companies may not have the end-to-end coverage, so they have the brokers or somewhere the reinsurer somewhere outside in Europe or US, for example. So it becomes, they make a consortium. So based on the consortium, then they may come up, for example, if your fraud value is X million, for example, then again, it depends that how much they're going to pay and how much is the deductible. And definitely most of the cases, if you are, if this is a fraud being agreed by that insurance assessor, risk assessor, and then you will get your refund. But there are definitely, you will not get 100% refund, but there is some deduction insurance will be always carrying as part of their insurance agreement. So this is what I've seen also in practically.
Yeah, these are the practical, like how the insurance companies operate generally. But the bigger question here is for me is that how we can avoid abusing the situation when there is a breach, and of course the damage recovery, the which company organization gonna claim to the insurance company has to be based on that assessment report. So as an organization, how we can ensure that the inspector or the team which comes from the insurance company for the inspection, they do their work with a full of professional integrity and as per the factual accuracy on the ground. Radwan, would you like to shed some light on that from your experience?
Happy to do so. So I used to work for IBM, or better to say, I was swallowed by IBM. Was a country manager of a subsidiary of a company which was bought worldwide by IBM, and I used to joke that I was the reason why IBM bought us. No, but to the point, when I got in this forceful way to IBM, we started to laugh, and we started to recognize how the company works. We started to laugh because there was a process for everything, even just standing up from your desk, there was a process. I'm exaggerating, but really there was a process for everything. On the other side, looking back, I believe that this is the reason why IBM is still here around, even after 120 years, something like that, of existence. Yeah, and you can discuss is the company big or smaller, but it is still here. And I believe that this good defined processes is the key here to the success. Let me give you an example why I believe so. So if your house burns down, the damage is kind of easy to assess, so how big was the house, how it will be expensive to rebuild it, how much you pay the premium, is there a limit or not, and based on that you can determine how much to pay. But still, even with the house, there is a question: was it really burned by someone or by an accident, or was there an arson? Yeah, so was it someone who burned it because of the financial troubles? Yeah. And if you have a kind of client inspection which can, based on the processes, find out, okay, this was an accident and this was burned on purpose, yeah, you save a lot of troubles here. And the same, I believe, is in the cyber insurance. If you can first, before you close the insurance, from the insurance point of view, or from the insurance company point of view, you can define, okay, what will be the potential damage, which will occur if this and this breach is happening, and if this and this data is stolen. So this is the first step. So to have introduced this process. Then even more important is to find out, was it on purpose, or was it a negligence, or was it even an arson? So then it is the traceability. You should have processes, for the insurance company, and then kind of, impose them on the insured company, that there are processes which can prove how this breach has happened, could have been prevented, yes or no. So is there a kind of a reason to pay the full premium, or just, a part of the premium? Yeah. So again, so processes and traceability, of what has happened, and defining upfront what will be the premium if A, B, or C is happening. This can help both parties to make a kind of clear cut. Since again, with the data, it is our gold, or I would say it is the oil of the 21st or 22nd century even. But the point is, how you can assess it. So make your homework upfront, and then when it comes to the breach, you won't be badly surprised.
Absolutely, and then I think, with all this thing, what you have just said is makes me asking a more bigger question now, which is, in certain cases, the cyber insurance companies, they do not even, there's some of the organizations, they do not even qualify for this insurance packages or insurance services because, first of all, the data which they are claiming that is correct is down there based on the assessment. They don't find it correct because if the value of the house could be $100,000, but if the company claims that no, it's a $500,000, so there should be a mechanism to verify, which service providers should do that. But from a cyber insurance service provider's point of view, I mean, what are the key considerations to reach to the conclusion to not or to disqualify any company? First of all, I could see off like that meaning there is no risk mitigation or the protection mechanisms at all considered, which is highly unlikely. I think the other thing is other aspect is having an ineffective controls, internal controls implemented, which can result in a lot of fraudulent activities. The third which aspect which I would like to shed some light on, Shtiaksha, which is the people part. When insurance company deals with the stakeholders for any organization, how trustworthy are those? Because in certain cases, when they come for the damage assessment, they have to take the statements of the stakeholders as the evidence. So if the people are not trustworthy and they are involved in so how important is that to consider for cyber insurance service provider?
Yeah, in these cases, what they do, or what I've seen also, they go with some independent risk assessors or the organization. I'll not name those organizations here, who can perform the assessment and find out and tell the what could be the cause of this issue and why this risk has happened. So there are two parts to your question. One is how to satisfy an insurance company when there is a claim, that your claim is genuine and you have followed the best practices and you were right on your side, but unfortunate things have happened actually. And so then definitely they will, I've seen that they come and ask some independent risk assessment companies, or if there's some government agencies involved, for example, if this fraud is of such a nature where some multiple agencies are involved, so they'll take their feedback also. And there's the one thing. And second thing, depending on the size of the organization and the readiness on the cybersecurity readiness, definitely insurance companies have a choice whether to insure a company or not to insure a company. But if, for example, if your risk is high as a company, so there are two solution insurance companies can come up. Either they can deny straight away, or the premium will be such a high that definitely you may not be able to go for it actually. So this is the second suggestion I have it in this. And definitely as part of the insurance questionnaire, they assess everything. They assess people, process, technologies, your cybersecurity readiness, technologies, what you're using, what are the basic principles you're doing, how you're carrying change management, for example, how you're tracking the security threat, security risk, how your brand protection is happening, for example, bigger corporates. So these are all the aspects which are being part of the cybersecurity insurance questionnaire also, what I've seen. And then from there they can judge. If you are saying yes, then definitely they can come and ask that how you are saying yes. And if your basics are right, definitely they will come and protect you and provide you cyber insurance.
Right, right. So, I mean, I think it's still like there are other more aspects which I would like to hear from your good selves. Is that Radhuvan, I mean, still considering that a trust deficit on the stakeholders, how important it is for the cyber insurance companies to consider?
It is absolutely essential. Look, so as always in business, and for me this is business, the moral integrity, high ethics, is key. And we have people who have that, and we have people who have probably a little bit lower. And when they get under the pressure, they can start behaving unethically. And we will also always have people who from the very beginning are thinking, how to kind of cheat. Yeah. So here and in this respect, there are two things which are coming to my mind. You know, my first, and sorry for bringing that up. You know, there was a saying from Lenin. You know, the leader of the Russian Revolution, which I cannot praise at all. But he had a very interesting saying. You know, trust is good, checking is better. Yeah. So we should trust everyone, but you know, let's double check. If we are going to have a medical insurance, most of the insurance company will run us through a medical check so that they know the status where we are today, so that we cannot claim in half a year, okay, look, so I got sick and you should be paying for the rest of my life. And the same stuff should be done here for the insurance company. And the trust, you know, can be increased by what I call, and this comes from sale, this is my second part, comes from TPV, which stands for third party validation. You have someone who can validate that the person you are dealing with, you know, is trustworthy. So first, of course, it could be the trust record of the manager or of the board member who used to work at that other company. So is it a good standing, or yes or no? And the second is what we have been talking here about is number of audits performed by other companies, by consulting companies or whomever you take. So you as an insurance company can require, okay, so I did my own check, but can you also provide some audits which do prove that you have done all necessary precautions, so more or less that your moral ethic is high, so that if we are dealing, that the premium is correct. So come back to your question, coming back to essential, for me, business ethic, high moral standings is absolutely key. You know, it's always a danger, so you should be concentrating on that. And the way how can you approach it are several. You can do it by third-party validation, like audits. You can do it by following the tracks. And sometimes what always helps is dealing with people face to face, because in a discussion, you can smell or feel, you know, so is it a trustworthy person, yes or no? So internet is great. Without internet, we would not be able to have this conference. But, you know, I would be even more pleased, you know, to have it in face-to-face environment. Yeah. So much to my answer.
Yeah, I'll just add one point here. Yeah, definitely, you're absolutely right. And then other days, especially for cybersecurity space, then we have got a log collection tools. For example, we have got SOC and SIMs available. So you have got a, if you want to trace a transaction or if you want to trace a hacking incident, then you have got all the logs and incident and reports available. For example, you know from which point the person entered, how he reached to your entry point, DMZs, how he reached to your first firewall, how he reached to your web server, application server, database server. So you can trace the full thing. So in cyber risk, I think one thing is right: independent auditor, assessor, or independent bodies to check and validate. But definitely, since there are logs, so logs will say always the truth. So in this case, truth cannot be hidden. Actually, this is my last point I like to add. Thank you.
Indeed, been having, I think, been from my experience, like been any organization which can afford a SOC in their environment, when won't consider even insurance an option as well, because they have been able to monitor their risks and mitigate and respond as well internally. And of course, if they are not been able to, then they would consider, like, the transferring the risk to the other company. So considering the vastness of this topic, I think we can have another couple of hours to talk on. But considering the last few minutes left of our session, when I appreciate, like, the participants, they started sharing their questions, they started posting in the chat box. So I'll be, like, asking the questions on their behalf. And once all the questions are answered within the given time, we will keep the last few couple of minutes just to take your, the takeaways for this session before we close the session. So I'll ask the first question. So which is from Mohammed Irshad. The insurers will deny coverage based on the common cybersecurity and as exclusion, which is failure to maintain minimum security standards. So how the insurance company define the minimum security standards? Anyone would like to volunteer to answer?
Go ahead, Mohammed.
Yeah.
So definitely insurance company, as I said, they have got set questions, and then they know the local regulations also. So if these companies or financial organization, then they'll say what are the local central bank regulations, what are the privacy regulations, and this one thing. Second, and what are the, and plus they can also check the previous audit reports or IT audit reports or the independent internal audit reports from third party. From there, they can find out if there are any issues which are the in terms of weakness. Plus, they can also do a assessment of the environment of the organization. So one way they can verify is the what is the readiness of this organization from a regulatory point of view. Second is how the independent auditor reports were there. Third is they can themselves they can assess it. For example, I can give you example whether they can check if there is a firewall available or not available, or IPS is there, WAF is there, your database access management system security is available, your privilege access management security is there, your patching procedures are there. Are you doing your patch management regularly, for example? Are you applying to your security patches? Are your network devices, or especially the devices in the DMZs, are patched on for example, at least not quarterly, at least not monthly, at least quarterly basis. So these are, and are the latest security patches and the threats are being addressed. Plus, what are the SOC tickets? What are the critical SOC tickets pending for last 1 month, for example? So there are different ways they can assess, and then based on this, definitely insurance companies have choice whether to offer the insurance policy or no. Yes, sir.
Right. So considering the big number of growing questions, I mean, I would like to kindly request, like, if we can keep the answers as brief as
Yeah.
possible, would be
Yeah.
for the benefit for all. I'll jump on the next question. I hope the answer that's fully the person who has asked the question has satisfied with the answer. The next question is how COVID-19 has shifted the view of cyber insurance. Yeah, Radwan,
Yes,
like
I would say it has shifted very much since a number of businesses have moved too much into the virtual world. Yeah, so now we are internet. So internet became much more important, and for that reason, also the cyber insurance is becoming more important. And if I could just very short, I would say radical question, I fully agree with to what Mohammed said before about how the insurance company should handle that. My point is, if they are not uh, if they are not serious about going into the cyber insurance, they should not be doing that. And if they go there, they should have their own team who build up their processes, again, IBM, and regulation and standards so that they know what you are doing. Simply, if you are not into life insurance, you don't do that. If you are not into car insurance, you don't do that. The same for cyber insurance. You need expert, you need commitment, you need expertise.
exactly. So next question is what are the implications of cyber insurance on an institution's computing systems and processes? Ishtiyaq, would you like to take it?
Yeah, for me, this is going to be positive implications only because there are regulators checking you. There is insurance companies which may come back, and if there is a breach happen, and plus to protect the interest and the brand of your company. So, in my opinion, definitely this will bring a positive change in organizational culture, and then definitely as there was one example given that it can be also your brand image as well. You can say you are GDPR compliant, or you are ISO 27001 compliant, or you are Qatar Cybersecurity Framework compliant. So this gives you a real edge actually in terms of business.
Yeah, Radwan, would you like to add something on this?
Absolutely fine. Nothing to add here.
Right. So next question I'll jump on is what are the trade-offs of self-insuring than buying cyber liability insurance?
I can, so very briefly, to me, generally, a generic topic, insurance increases the cost of running the business. If the business is running smoothly, but it decreases the cost of the business if there are incidents. Yeah. So generally, you should kind of trade off. Do I want to self-insure? Do I want to get insured? Do I want to at all talk about insurance if I am 100% sure that nothing bad will happen? So this is always, we should see that this is an extra money which is increasing your cost burden for running the business if it goes smoothly, but it's again decreasing the cost. And then the question is to find the optimal way. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the question was quite tricky, and so the answer was. so, so I'll just move to the next question. It's considering the dynamics of advanced threats, breaches, how does cyber insurance address the reputational loss? Ishtiyaq, sir?
Reputational loss, in this case, if you want to, first of all, you should make sure that your environment is secured. You have got services like brand protection from the brand protection agencies, and this could be from the cybersecurity threat point of view. But in case there is a breach, and then definitely you have to declare there is a breach. So there is a financial loss, and then there is definitely reputational loss. So you cannot avoid, unfortunately. This is the world we are into actually. And even if you try to hide it, also definitely it will go somehow other out. So there is nothing can be done, in my opinion.
Yeah, please.
Just shortly, to me, this is an extra seal which tells the customer we take it seriously. We do not guarantee that there will be loss of data, but we already take it seriously. We did precautions and we insured ourselves, so we are more trustworthy. So I would see this as a selling instrument.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes a perfect sense when it comes to the reputational risk. Like, showing the certificate that we are completely, insured our operations and the systems, that helps us gaining the more trust from the customers and suppliers. So moving to the next question is that does the purpose of assurance fulfilled by a simple questionnaire from the customer to a cyber insurance provider on their current security posture and architecture? A very important question. And that's exactly, I think it's that should go to Ishtiyaq, because he highlighted that the questionnaire, the checklist-based questionnaire, is it sufficient?
And as you mentioned actually, and as we discussed in the panel also, definitely the question, plus they have got independent ways to verify third-party assessor, third-party auditor, vulnerability reports, previous audit reports. Even they can bring in their own expert team, like IBM example given by one, and then they can verify the environment and readiness to make sure that the basics are there or not there as a minimum.
Right. So additional sort of assurances are required, because what we are talking about, the trust deficit if that we are facing with the stakeholders and so on. So the next question is again with the relevant to the pandemic. So has work from home culture shifted the paradigm of cyber insurance in any means? If so, how?
I think it has, and the reason is that now also on private computers or home computers you can have company data, so there are more potential vulnerability points how the data could be attacked. So it has spread the reach of the insurance.
Right. So considering the last few minutes left as a time, I'll take this as a last question from Ratish Vidu. At what point should an organization decide whether to go for an insurance? Should they first try to implement basic security posture and then look out for the good insurance policy and go for a full coverage policy from the beginning? I think it's a very practical question when it comes to considering that whether they should go for insurance policy or not. So who would like to take it?
I can answer this, because definitely
Sure.
I will answer. So from the practical point of view, when some organizations are in the implementation phase or in the initial phase of their maturity, definitely they may not have everything available. So in my opinion, they should go for insurance policy. Premium might be higher, but it should be bound with some time frame. For example, they can say that we are in currently our security posture is weak, and we are going for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 improvement. And these projects or implementation could be completed in next 6 months, the next 12 months, 18 months, or 2 years. And then definitely based on this, So what I suggest, you should buy the insurance, plus you should also have the roadmap to improve yourself, because just insurance will not protect, and just implementing the solution also will not going to protect you from the financial damages. So this both need to go hand in hand.
Exactly. Radwan, would you
Yeah.
like to add?
Very well said, and I would probably just, to turn it in a different wording, that the very exact answer is it depends. And it depends is, I would take it from the business point of view. How much risk and damage do I have without and with insurance? And if I see that I have more damage without insurance, then definitely we should go for that. And as Mohammed said, then to decide which is the best one for me at the given stage.
Exactly. So, gentlemen, we have a last 2 minutes left now. So, man, I would like to kindly request to what our participants should take with them, from this session. So, what are your final takeaways or the messages to CROs and the CISOs as the decision makers of the cyber insurance policies from your standpoint? Let's start with Ishtiyaq.
So from my suggestion will be that from CISO point of view, definitely they should make sure they understand the environment. They know they have done the gap assessment or the risk assessment, and they know what are the technology and process gaps available in the environment. And then definitely they should draw a roadmap to improve that. And that is a prime role of CISO. Plus, they should also implement advanced technologies like SOC or next generation SOC to keep track of the day-to-day incidents and find out who are attacking their environment, what are the vulnerabilities in the environment, what are the weakness, and what are the active threats they are seeing in the environment. So SOC is going to be, or next generation SOC is going to be critical for the CISOs, because that's going to be their eyes and ears only. And then definitely for them to protect against financial losses, I suggest that or recommend they should have the insurance policies available. Plus, they should also make sure they comply with the local governing requirements. For example, I had to report to 4 different regions basically in the central banks actually. So you should make sure what is your area you're working and who are the regulators you're reporting, and what are the local governing regulations you have to comply. And definitely you need to comply with those requirement as a CISO, and you should need to keep your eyes and ears open always.
Well, thank you very much. Radwan, your final message.
The cyber insurance is becoming the new normal. It hasn't been here 20, 30 years ago, and it will be omnipresent in 10 or 15 years. And I believe that those who will embrace it today could profit from 2 things: probably better premiums, and definitely then, I would say, better standing on the market due a better reputation. So consider it seriously.
Thank you very much. So that's here we reached to the end of the session. Thank you so very much, our dear experts and guests and panelists, and the participants as well, who has contributed well, asking like so many questions. And I would like to request you to please stay tuned for the next upcoming sessions as well. We always, as part of Cyberselect community, we always select a very relevant, hot topics, not only for the cyber. Now, the more coming series for the topics are related to the emerging technologies, which is we referring as MTech. So that will be a good, the point to get to know more about the new technologies. Once again, on behalf of the community, thank you very much for all of you for participating, and looking forward to have you join for more sessions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmad.
Thank you very much, Ahmad, for inviting us.
Thank you,
Ahmad. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.